it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some easy ways to customize your woodworking projects using a Cricut. Now, I know that you probably think that Cricut machines are just for small crafting projects, but there are so many ways that you can use this, even in your workshop. So in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating 5 easy ways to use a Cricut in your workshop to upgrade your woodworking projects. First, we'll talk about creating custom stain templates. Then we'll talk about custom paint templates, then vinyl lettering and patterns, cutting templates, and finally, how to make your own labels and stickers. First off, a huge thank you to Cricut for sponsoring this video. Adding a Cricut to the workshop has opened up so many doors to customize my projects, and it's been really fun to just play around with. Now, I know that anytime you add a new tool or piece of equipment to your workshop, it's an investment. So it's important to make sure that what you're getting is going to be worth it. But that's exactly why I wanted to make this video, to show you some examples of simple projects to inspire you with new ideas that you can apply to your own projects in your own shop, both big and small. So let's meet the machine. In this video, I'll be using the Cricut Explorer 3. This machine cuts up to 12 inches wide on over 100 materials. Although I usually keep it pretty simple and mostly just cut vinyl, you could also cut writable paper, cardstock, foil, iron-on material, and use pins to write or draw on these as well. As far as setup and use, it's really easy to get started, which is my favorite part. You just design your ideas using the free Cricut Design Space software that comes with the machine. It's really simple to use, and you can just add text or graphics or even upload your own artwork that you may have designed elsewhere to cut or draw with your Cricut machine. Once you complete your design, you simply send it to the machine using Bluetooth connectivity. There's no complicated or time-consuming setup or cables needed every time you want to cut a quick design. You just turn it on, load it up, and go. When using smart materials with the Cricut Explorer 3, no cutting mat is required, although you can still use one if you like, especially for those smaller projects. But when using straight from the material roll, it can cut designs up to 12 feet long in one go. Now, while that's all great, I know you really just want to see it in action, so let's make some stuff. Let's dive into application number 1, using the Cricut to create custom stain stencils. I've actually used this method before on this mid-century dresser cabinet to add this design on the doors. But it's also how I made these wooden art pieces for my guest bedroom, which is what I'm going to walk you through now. I had actually designed this image previously for a different project that I just never got around to. So instead of recreating it, I simply uploaded it into Cricut Design Space. I love the option to design from scratch, but I also love the option to use your existing images and graphics as well. This is a super easy process for basic designs like this. You simply upload your image and select whether you want to cut or print. In this case, I'm just cutting. It automatically separates the sections and allows you to remove the parts that you don't want, then apply it to the canvas. Here I can size it how I want it and cut. But first, I like to crunch things down to save a little vinyl, so I split this into 3 pieces and duplicated it so that I can make 2 identical art pieces. Then I sent the design to the machine, loaded my smart vinyl, and let it cut. I always find this part kind of mesmerizing to watch. Once it was complete, I removed the parts where I wanted to apply stain. Then I applied transfer tape on the design to help me transfer this to the wood without losing its shape, which you'll see in a minute. I cut these pieces apart, then headed to the shop. For the quote-unquote canvas, I used pieces of scrap plywood and sanded to 400 grit so that they were very smooth. This will just help prevent bleed through on the edges. I removed all the dust off the surface, then removed the vinyl backer on each piece of the stencil and applied these to the wood. Stain will tend to bleed through no matter what kind of template you use. That's just the nature of stain on wood. So make sure to sand and press the vinyl down well to minimize bleed through. I removed the transfer tape and then used some painter's tape on the edges to cover the surface. I'm a messy stainer, so I just knew that I'd end up getting stain all over the place if I didn't cover everything. Then I dabbed the stain onto the wood. You don't want to just flood it with stain, so dabbing it kind of helps keep it from soaking up under the vinyl. I used ebony stain on the lines and an orange tinted stain for the circle. I just felt that this color combo gave some mid-century vibes. Then I removed the vinyl to reveal the design. The overall project from cutting the vinyl to removing the stencil after the stain took about 15 minutes, so not bad for some custom art pieces. You can apply this to all sorts of applications, so don't get stuck on just thinking about it for only artwork. This application would translate well to adding any kind of design, lettering, or pattern onto a furniture piece, customizing some small wooden projects, or even using this idea to add your own branding logo to your projects. Application number 2 is very similar to the first one, only this time let's try paint. I've actually used this application several times in the past to make this little Woodshop Diaries sign and this huge Woodshop Diaries sign, and for this life-size ruler project. For this project, I'm throwing it back a few videos. I made a joke about being on the Hot Mess Express, and a few of you mentioned that I should make a sign about it. So here we are. For this design, instead of uploading an existing image, I just designed this from scratch using the images within the Design Space software. So I found a train and a speech bubble to use for the smoke trail. Sometimes you just have to get a little creative here. There are tons of tutorials on using Design Space on Cricut.com, but honestly, it's pretty intuitive to just kind of play around with and figure out. Once I had my train design the size that I wanted, I added some text, then cut it on some white vinyl. In true Hot Mess Express fashion, I accidentally printed out all board the Hot Mess Express and not all aboard the Hot Mess Express. So I've cut that out with my knife here, and I reprinted the text down here. So I will put the transfer tape on it and I can transfer this where I cut out the wrong words, but of course I wouldn't be making all aboard the Hot Mess Express sign without having a hot mess moment. I applied the transfer tape to the design and cut out the correct piece of text. I had a scrap piece of painted plywood in my shop scrap pile already, so I just applied this to it. I carefully patched over the cutout with the correct text, then trimmed this piece down to size. I covered the edges with painter's tape, then gave it a few coats of rose gold spray paint. Fancy. I was a little worried that the vinyl might peel some of the black paint off the piece when I removed it, but it actually came off perfectly and this turned out so fun. I love this so much. I'm definitely hanging it up here in the shop. Application number 3 is a pretty obvious one, so I'll make this quick. The same way that you can use vinyl as a template for stain or paint to make your design, you can also just reverse the idea and use the vinyl to make your design as well. You can apply this to wood projects, but you could also apply this around your shop anywhere that you need a label on something. In this case, I'm in the mood for fall, so I'm going to print out a little "Hello Pumpkin" text and make me a quick and easy fall project. Cricut Design Space has tons of fun fonts to pick from, or you can import your own design or font as well. Just like before, I can size it, then send it to the machine to cut. Since this is a small piece, I cut it from some scraps and I used a cutting mat. These cutting mats are sticky on the top, so you just stick what you want to cut on it and load it into the machine. Just like before, I'll weed out everything that I don't want, apply the transfer tape, then stick it right on my piece of wood. Vinyl is a little tricky sometimes to apply to wood, so here's some tips. Make sure it's sanded smooth, very smooth, like at least 400 grit. And make sure that all of the dust is removed. You want the vinyl to stick to the wood, not to the dust. It will also stick a little better if it's sealed first, so it may help to poly the wood first and allow to completely cure before applying. Make sure to use permanent vinyl and smooth it out really well before removing the transfer tape. Now let's finish this little fall idea with application number 4. This application involves using the Cricut to make a cutting template. In my case, I wanted to cut out a pumpkin shape on some plywood to go on top of this board to reveal the letters underneath. So I found a pumpkin shape that I liked in Cricut Design Space, drew a square over it, then I could slice it to remove the parts that I didn't want. Again, there are tons of tutorials on Cricut.com on how to do various tasks in Cricut Design Space, so be sure to check that out. I imported the Hello Pumpkin text to make sure that I sized my pumpkin large enough to not cover all of the text. Then I sent this to my Cricut Explorer 3 to cut out. Now I can apply this to my plywood and use this as a template to cut out my shape. When cutting plywood especially, tear out from the jigsaw is a common issue. It helps to use some tape on top to hold the wood flat to help prevent this. So using vinyl in this way serves as both a template shape to follow, but since it's sticky, it also helps prevent tear out as well. You just need to make sure that the template is on the part that you want to keep versus putting it on the part that you want to remove. That way it prevents the tear out on the correct side of the board. This would also make a great template for hand routing if you wanted to freehand route a name or a shape into a piece of wood. I'm not good with freehand drawing shapes and designs, so having the Cricut to provide my shape helps make my cuts look a lot cleaner and more professional. But again, don't get stuck on thinking that this is only for small art projects. This would be really helpful in routing, cutting a decorative edge on a trim piece, or cutting out equal-sized letters, shapes, or patterns. After staining, I glued this piece onto my little Hello Pumpkin piece. Then I glued on a frame around the edges to make a really fun and simple fall decor sign. This may actually be one of my favorite projects ever, even though it's so simple. Anyway, let's move on to application number 5. I mentioned earlier that you can use vinyl lettering to make labels for things around your shop, but another option besides using vinyl is using writable paper. Lately, I've started making some with my logo on it to brand my projects and to just stick around the shop for fun. So far, we've looked at how the Cricut Explorer 3 can cut, but it can also write. You still make this in Cricut Design Space, but this time you need to specify which parts that you want to write versus which parts that you want to cut. I'm writing out my logo, but then I'm cutting out my sticker shape around it. Once you have the sticker design how you like it, you need to be sure to attach these together before making so that they all stay centered or aligned as you designed it. I made a few at a time so that I could use up almost the whole sheet here. Cricut offers all kinds of writable paper and cardstock options, but I really love this brown writable paper. It's actually made to use directly with the Cricut Joy machine, which is smaller than the Explorer, but you can stick it on a mat and use it all the same. This is perfect for adding branding labels to your projects, labeling various containers or items around the house or shop, like screw organizers, plant tags, or spice bottles. Or you can think beyond just labels and make practically any kind of custom sticker that you can dream of. I hope you've enjoyed this video, taking a look at how a Cricut can help you add some custom touches and upgrades to your woodworking projects. If you're interested in learning more, check out the link in the video description to check out the Cricut Explorer 3 and all of the tools and materials that you can use with it. I'll be back with some bigger build videos soon, so if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to follow along. Anyway, friends, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy building.